everybody, it's Josh with Talk About Trek, and we're back again because tonight we have finished Star Trek Voyager, book number 4, Violations, by Susan Wright. Susan Wright is a great Star Trek author. I've read a few of her books before and have always enjoyed them, and it was the same case with Violations. I guess let's just jump right into the book here. So what we've got is when their main computer is hijacked, the USS Voyager crew are caught in a dangerous political struggle. And looks like we're going to be featuring Janeway and Torres here, which is apt here for the book. Now, under the guise of helping the crew find a way home, a group of aliens board the USS Voyager and then steal the main computer. To get it back, Captain Janeway is forced to negotiate with the thieves, who are from a consortium of planets where thievery is a way of life. But as Janeway and the crew fight to retrieve their computer in time to save the barely functioning ship, they become embroiled in a political battle that could not only destroy the USS Voyager, but her crew as well. Well, yeah, I mean, if the crew is on the Voyager, it stands to reason if the Voyager is destroyed, then the crew also would be destroyed. That's not the best back cover I've ever read, but, what are you going to do? So, what do we have with Voyager number 4 here? As with all the early Voyager novels, you have some little bit of, the characters are just kind of a little bit off. Because, of course, all these authors were just seeing maybe like the first couple episodes, reading the character Bible, and basing their writings upon that. Interesting thing about this book is that Paramount told Susan here that they were going to call the Doc Zimmerman. So this whole book, he's not the Doctor, he's Doc Zimmerman. So you have to put up with that, of course. Maybe they characterize Paris as like a little bit too much of a hothead in the book, and we'll get into that. And I don't know. Again, the Kes and Neelix thing, I think was always kind of weird, right? Everybody kind of agrees that was a little bit weird, and it's kind of weird in here too. And maybe they didn't do Neelix the justice that he deserves in my eyes, but it really is. It is an ensemble. There's not like one main focus, but yeah, I would say Janeway and Torres kind of get the main part of the story. And then you have Tom Paris and Harry Kim, Kes and the Doctor, Tuvok kind of coming in that kind of order, I would say, as far as who your characters are. There's definitely not a lot of action in this book. It's more of a we've got into a situation, now we've got to get ourselves out of it kind of thing, which is one thing I really like about, reading sci-fi, is when the situation gets down to like the, absolute worst and everything's breaking down. And that's how this book starts. So I did like that part especially. And then when they get to the cartel and the Tutopans, they're an interesting species. I guess I didn't get into them as much as some other, alien species. But for me, really, I think the focus of this book was just the crew kind of coming together, working through this dilemma. And, even though it's not exactly the crew we know because it's kind of early, you can still kind of see it there. So, definitely very fun. A very interesting little, I don't know, just an interesting dilemma, and then the way they have to solve it is just through, not the normal means. They can't just, they have to kind of work through different means to get to the resolution here. So I really did enjoy it, and I think, again, my favorite part was just the kind of seeing the crew rebound when things got bad, and then getting into a position to, get themselves back on top. So it was kind of one of those kind of stories, and I had fun with it. So that's the non-spoilery part of the book. Now, or the video. This is not a book. I am not a book. I am a man. Now, getting into the book again. So what happens at first is fairly ridiculous, and Tuvok I'm looking at you, man. How could you let this happen? But they come close to this planet or whatever, this system. They ask Neelix about it, and they find out it's called the cartel. And he generally tells them to kind of avoid it, unless they want to end up leaving without their ship. Is basically how he puts it. So Janeway's like, oh well, we can handle this cartel, and just kind of initially is going to barge right in. But then they have this little moment in the beginning where Chakotay kind of takes her aside and reminds her that she can't do everything like how she used to do things. Now they're on the other side of the galaxy. They don't have the backup of Starfleet, so they can't act as if they do. So she has to be more cautious, and that's when she chooses to visit and like the outlier planets and see if they can get some information there. Of course, they're looking for navigational data, locations of wormholes, anything they can get to get themselves home faster. So they meet up with this ship, this Tutopan ship called the Capon, and they agree to negotiate. They find out that these Tutopans basically deal in information. So they agree to give them star charts of their part of the galaxy in exchange for knowledge about wormholes and stuff like that. And these Tutopans agree, but they don't agree to an exchange through communications. They have to do everything physically by meeting up. So they have to send a ship over to the Voyager to meet up with them. So already it's like a little suspicious, right? Like something's going on. You think that Tuvok would be on top of this thing, but I guess there's things that they don't know about, things in this quadrant. So anyway, once the Tutopans board, you get your first look at them, and they're fairly nondescript. They have they describe it as like a flat kind of almost like a featureless face. When they look at each other, like as far as the faces go, they can't really even tell them apart too much. And what tells them apart mostly is like a clasp that covers their hair, which kind of grows. It's like a receding hair coming back into like a big puff on the back of their neck. And then they have different color hair and different styles of clasps. And that's kind of how they differentiate themselves. But anyway, the Tutopians seem a little bit nervous, and then not long after they come on board, Janeway is gasping for air, and the whole crew is knocked unconscious. Like come on, like if they wanted to, right there, the Tutopans just could have taken everything and blew the ship out of there, and that's it. But that's not what they were looking for. When the crew of the Voyager comes to, they find that their main computer processor has been stolen. Oh no. So basically everything is offline and unable to function. So this was the part of the book that I really enjoyed, because they have to work together on a ship without communications, without anything, to kind of do what they can to restore sensors, restore some power, and find out what happened to them. And that's kind of what the first part of the book is, and they're able to work through these problems. Kim, Torres, even like the doctor working with Kes, are able to kind of figure some things out and get the computer, the main computer is gone, but get like the reserves operational enough so they can scan, they can figure some things out, and they can hopefully figure out where the ship went that took their processor. That's exactly what they do, and of course it goes directly in the direction of the hub, which is the cartel's main network. And it's this giant station, something like 50,000 miles in diameter, and thousands of ships, coming in and out. And somewhere in there, this ship is gone with their processor. So they are able to follow the trail of the ship to the hub, and then they begin this like ridiculous series of docking procedures and all this with like this overly bureaucratic person who kind of puts them through the ringer and makes Tom Paris do like this incredibly long and detailed, docking procedure where they finally get to where they need to be, and then they can start negotiating. So, and at first, they're not really getting any help, but then they're able to get permission to go aboard the hub. Let me see. My notes were vague because I was reading kind of fast when I was also playing and doing other things, But let me get to my notes anyway. Yeah, here we go. Okay. Let's see. those are my notes. Look, I left all that open space. That's ridiculous. I should have wrote more down, but that's why I have the wiki open here too, in case I forget any of the finer points of the novel. One thing I'll point out is the German language version of this book. The cover is just a picture of Neelix, and I think that's hilarious. I don't know why they would have chosen to do that, but that's great. Okay, so just let me get this to the right spot here. Okay. So two different kind of situations going on. You have Janeway negotiating for the return of the processor, trying to figure out where it went, and you have Tom and Tuvok trying to find a supply of chemicals that they can use to fix their bioneural gel packs. And if they can get these chemicals, they can kind of stabilize things and be in a better position. Right now, kind of everything is slowly, failing. So they got this kind of two-pronged mission, and they are able to find out through this character that they bring in, this Agent Andros, that their processor was salvaged, but of course was stolen, and was taken to the planet Mintutopa further into the system. So they have to arrange permission, with like the House of Mintutopa. There's various houses that control this place, and there's a cartel and like a general assembly of people. So it's very bureaucratic, and they've got to figure out like who to talk to. And this Andros eventually gets permission to take Janeway and Torres to the planet. So off they go to the planet, and leaving Chakotay in charge on the ship. And then things just kind of fall. Well, see, this is where like Tom Paris kind of maybe acts a little bit out of character. He does some finagling, and it's also because he just wants to visit the hub. He wants to get off the ship and be around people. But also he wants to find out where the processor went, find out where the chemicals are that they need. But anyway, he gets down to the planet, and they do have a kind of interesting little scene where I think they kind of made Tuvok look stupid, really. Where at first Tuvok and Tom beam down, and Tuvok basically says, "All right, Tom Paris, you just go wait over there while I'll go figure everything out." And kind of like Tom Paris makes Tuvok look like a clown after the guy that he meets up with is, basically proven to be like nothing. He's just going to walk away with the money and not give him any information. So then next time they go down, Tom goes down with Neelix instead, and they go down to like a dive bar trying to find information, and that's when they meet up with this Tutopan janitor named Tracer, and who's drunk enough to kind of give them some information, and he's able to find a way into their computer system. So then Tom Paris goes down for a third time. This time he takes Harry Kim with him, and they go and break into this computer system, but they get caught. Harry beams out in time, but Tom is arrested, and I think this Tracer is arrested as well too. So, and Tom was being kind of pushy and a jerk, and did a lot of things to this Tracer too, while they were drunk, kind of coercing them to do this. But they did get the information they needed, and they found out on the computers so that this Agent Andros has actually been in charge of all these computer thefts, and he's been the one orchestrating the whole thing. But it's too late to tell that to Janeway and Torres. They're already on their way. And now they have their own problems to deal with Mr. Paris being arrested by the cartel here. And basically getting ready now for an interrogation. So, see, this book actually, it kind of goes all over the place. There's so many different aspects to it. One of the ones I especially liked, I explained before, was like the broken down ship and the repairing of that. There's also a lot of really technical Star Trek technobabble that goes on kind of in this part of the book too, which is really good and well done. And then there's an interesting little scene about the Tutopans' kind of torture method, I guess, as they interrogate Tom Paris. And like what he goes through, and how they're able to actually like induce simulations into his mind. And so let's see, here we go. Oh, so yeah, now they have to. Well, Chakotay basically has to do something at this point. That he's got to make a decision that maybe is not the best thing to do because they're still trying to work with these people, but it's obvious that going through like the normal channels isn't going to work anymore. So they're able to basically they agree to send Kim down to be like a baseline test for this interrogation, but he has a little transporter in his under his nail, and as soon as he can, he pokes Tom with it, and they both beam back to the ship and escape. And then the Voyager breaks away from the hub and kind of limps towards the planet as slowly as they, or as quickly as they can, which is fairly slowly, with the enforcers of the cartel, following them to see what they're doing. So at this point now, that like they know that this Andros has kind of been off about everything. But on the planet now, you get to find out exactly what's going on, which is basically like a political coup situation where Andros has been trying to get computer processors so that he could use them to override the cartel and send like this message to all the people of his world. So he's kind of like trying to fight for freedom against this cartel and take them down. But of course, Janeway can't get involved. It's a, prime directive kind of thing. So he wants them to help get the computer working, but they don't want to do that and basically refuse. And they gas him they get gassed a couple of times. But uh, I like how the situation, or how Janeway, I guess, resolved the situation here. Uh, and it's just cool because it all works out because they have transporters and nobody else does in this part of the galaxy. So they're able to, when the Voyager approaches the planet, they're able to scan and quickly find the two non-Tutopin life signatures there and get them beamed up to the planet. And then once they beam them up, they beam aboard the 5 members of like the board, and these 5 board members have been locked in this standstill about who's going to take over next. And Janeway's able to not directly influence them, but just take them aboard the ship and basically be like, well, now unless you guys solve your situation, you're going to suffer the same fate as us. And they're currently getting blasted by the enforcers and that. So, because of this, the 5 people are able to come to a decision and they elect the next administrator, which happens to be the one that kind of everybody was wrangling to get in place anyway, the one that this Andros was working to get in place anyway, this administrator Fee. And in the end, it's also kind of a clever little way that they're able to, tie everything up and make sure that they get Tom Paris back without any problems. They get get all his charges dropped and they get all their fines dropped and all that. So, but basically, in the end, what they do is when the new administrator Fee is in charge, and she really doesn't want to, just let them go, or kind of says, well, I really can't help you with all this anyway. They bring up the fact that in the very beginning, when they met up with the Capon, who gassed them and stole their processor, they originally agreed to exchange information. They had a contract and they didn't follow up with it. And when this administrator finds out about this, she's like terrified because basically that's like the basis of their society. So like if this isn't honored and then if the cartel finds out that this happened, like their whole house is done. So, with that knowledge, Janeway is able to kind of pressure her into getting all of Tom's charges dropped, getting the janitor's charges dropped, getting all their fees paid, and they're able to get their ship, get their processor back, get their ship fixed up, and get the heck out of there. So, fun, interesting little book. I had a good time with it. You're not looking at too many new characters, and again, since it's the beginning of Voyager, it's kind of like the characters aren't quite fleshed out yet. But again, I like the ship being, just completely messed up and they have to kind of work themselves back to getting it better. And a lot of great techno babble and just some interesting conclusions, I would say. So, all in all, Violations, for me, was a hit. And I was going to move on to some Enterprise after this, because I picked up a couple books from the Rise of the Federation series, but I found out that I picked up 2 and 3, and I didn't get 1. So, I need to get 1 before I can do that, which makes me think that next up on our Star Trek list will either be some TOS or Voyager 5. And we'll decide that here, I don't know, in the next couple hours or so, probably. So, well, we'll see where we go from here, but that was definitely a fun ride. As always, everybody, thank you so much for listening to me sit here and talk about Star Trek books for 20 to 30 minutes every week. As always, live long and prosper, and I will see everyone in the next video. Bye.